One of the really fun aspects of the documentary is that we have a record of my relationship with Ryan.
You're saying that even though he cut your scenes out of Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yeah, I've got something planned for him. Don't worry about that.
My guest today is an impossibly talented gent who's co-created both It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Mythic Quest, where he plays Iron Grim, a character who answers a lifelong question: what happens if you combine the innovation of Steve Jobs with the self-confidence of Sam Allardyce? But the reason he's here to stoke cold brew coffee it up with me is that now, almost 4 years ago, time goes fast, he joined forces with the greatest Canadian since Jesse Marsh. That would be Ryan Reynolds, to buy Wrexham AFC. Then, a sleeping giant in the National League. Not only do they remain, the two of them, the second most handsome club owners, behind Arsenal's Stan Kroenke, but their tenacious Welsh team has won back-to-back promotions for the first time in the entire span of human history, and has scaled the football pyramid back to League One for the first time in 19 trauma-filled years. It is a joy to welcome back once again. It's Rob McElhenney.
Hey, Raj. How are you? Great to be back.
It's an incredible time to be speaking to you. We'll talk about the football in one moment, but you're busier than the bookies taking bets that Noel and Liam will have at least one fist fight before the Oasis reunion. You're currently writing the 17th season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You've just filmed the 4th season of Mythic Quest. You've launched a whiskey brand, started a company, More Better. You also have Wrexham, a football club who are back in League One for the first time since 2005. I've got to know, what is the secret to balancing it all?
Great partnership. In almost all of the things that you just named, I have partnered with people who elevate me exponentially. And that's really the key to all of it. I have so many people that I can link arms with and forge through these endeavors.
The most recent season of Welcome to Wrexham covered the team's promotion from League Two to League One, first back-to-back promotion in the 159-year history of the Grand Club. For the second summer in a row, Wrexham started August in a new league with a new challenge lying ahead. Rob, how did you get your head around the unique challenges of League One? How do you explain them to those around you in LA, in your own words?
Yeah, once again, it's just turning to my left, to my right, and asking lots of questions and having more questions than we have answers. And it's funny when you listen. Interestingly enough, you start to learn and understand and grow and know all the things that you didn't know before. So with each season comes a new challenge, certainly. And so it's just about partnering with the right people and asking the right questions. But this year we've been fortunate. This is our best start, which we did not expect. We did not expect that. We go into every season, in the same way we go into any endeavor, which is assuming that if we put the work in, we'll at least have an opportunity to compete. And last season, we felt really confident going into League Two, and we got hammered. Blistered on the first day, and we got welcomed into the league in grand style by MK Dons. And this season, where our expectations, I wouldn't say they're lower, but they're tempered with reality, and we have been off to an incredible start.
Let's talk about that journey. Wrexham have made a number of signings this summer. It's really bulking season. You've added defender Seb Revan, centre-back Dan Scarr, midfielder Ollie Rathbone in from Rotherham. Bringing him in broke Wrexham's transfer record, previously held by Ollie Palmer, who was expensive because he came shirtless. And I think this clearly means Ollie Watkins is possibly coming next summer. But you also signed a remarkable human being, Arthur Okonkwo, on a permanent deal finally. That remarkable 22-year-old goalkeeper, bringing him in from Arsenal to the Stoke Kairas after last season's loan. And Rob, I'm fascinated by this because you've been the person on the phone who has often called these players up. You've sold them on the vision of what you're building in North Wales. You've told them what they can be part of. You famously talked Phil Parkinson, the manager, into coming to Wrexham, then in the National League, 2 levels below the club he'd most recently worked with. You don't have to give us the specifics, but like Okonkwo, how do you do it? How do you present your vision to them?
Well, I had a very long conversation with Arthur very quickly after the season was over, sometime in May. After the season was over, all the players They only have a few weeks off, so they scatter to the wind very quickly. And he was on vacation with his family. And I just asked if I could speak with him, and I wound up speaking with him for a couple of hours because we also have the benefit of Arthur signing with us last year. So he spent a good amount of time in Wrexham. So it was less about telling him all of the things that we were going to do because he saw them in action. It was more encouraging him to speak to the other players and to Phil and to ask them, are we putting our money where our mouth is, or are we just blowing hot air? And thankfully, after speaking with me for quite a while, and I kind of laid out for him how I saw this year going, or the next few years going, that would be different from what he's already seen. I implored him to speak to the players and to see what their experience has been like. And thankfully, within 24 hours, he signed.
I mean, I speak to a lot of footballers, Rob, and many of them divide the world into what they call football people and then the rest of us non-football people. And you are a non-football person who has become very quickly a singular kind of football person. So how do you make them believe in it? What's the secret?
This was always a mission of ours, and I think this is just a function of being on the other side of the camera. I've essentially always been a contractor or a day player or labor, for lack of a better term, although I think if I spoke to any of my roofing friends in Philadelphia and called myself a laborer, they would punch me in my face, and rightfully so. That said, I'm a member of 6 unions, so I am a union member. And so, yes, I'm always straddling the fence of worker and management because I'm a producer as well. But I've always sided with labor. And so when we got into this project in the first place, I'm friends with a lot more athletes than I am management or owners. And I would always ask them from their perspective, what were their owners doing right and what were they doing wrong? So I would say that we are a player-first organization, but we're certainly a community-first organization. But as far as the team goes, we're a player-first organization, and that's not just a mandate from me. That comes from Phil as well. And you see with the team that he's assembled, he has get your beep button ready, but he has a rule which is no holes, no. Or sorry, you know what it is? More specifically, I'm going to use another word: no heads.
There you go. That's the British translation.
Sorry, that's the big one. That's the one. Ben Foster would say that all the time. He was astonished how he would walk into the locker room and there were no, in his words, no heads. And that's,
by the way, Phil would never say no heads because it wouldn't, without the word attached, it just cannot be Phil Parkinson.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that people have a different idea of who Phil is based on the way he's portrayed in the documentary. And I go to pains to say that I don't know that person. I only see him in the documentary footage, because when you speak with him in person, he is not like that at all, as you well know. But he just has a different way of motivating his players. He knows the players so well, and he knows how to speak with them and what works with them.
God, I don't know that person. I adore that. I think Phil doesn't know that person, and that genuinely is the remarkable testament to the crucible that is a footballing locker room. But this has been a time of change. At the end of last season, Wrexham's 2 long-serving captains, Luke Young and the truly great Ben Tozer, both left the club. The armband has since gone to James McLean. What a bloke. Joined Wrexham last summer, has become an instant fan favourite in the Stoke end, the old Tech end. A proud, ferocious Irish fist of a footballer, takes an immense delight in the wind-up. At 35 years old, has convinced me that getting booed by your opponent is ultimately the secret to eternal youth. Rob, what did you see in him? What does he bring to this team? And what do you think made Phil feel like he was the right choice to become the new captain?
Yeah, well, first of all, as far as what we saw in him, we listen to Phil, and in Phil we trust. If Phil says he wants to sign a player, then we have full faith and trust in him. We ask very few questions about that. If there's somebody he wants to go after, then we go after them with everything we can. But I took an instant liking to James. He just reminds me of so many people that I grew up with, a staunch Irish Catholic neighborhood in South Philadelphia. And so I just saw a lot of people I know reflected in him. And I think he brings a lot of fun to the sport. I think people tend to take it a little too seriously. And I do understand when it gets into sociopolitics, it's a little bit dicey. However, in terms of the way he riles up fans, I just think it's a part of the fun. As long as that does not extend into the parking lot or outside of the football grounds, I just think it's a bit of fun.
I watched the opening game at the Stoke Harass in the Stoke end, and the fans do seem to utterly adore him. I only wish we knew more about how he felt about the royal family.
He makes things abundantly clear, although he respectfully declines instead of using the choice words that I know he'd like to use.
That chant I could not get out of my mind for about a week afterwards. I have to say, a big fan of Wrexham's kits this season. All three of them have got a Dragoness theme, like selections from the Targaryen collection. And on the back collar, there's a beautiful small tribute to the 266 victims of the Gresford colliery disaster, which is about to be honoured and memorialised in a couple of weeks' time at the Stoke Harass. And Rob, I know that you're into design. Your black Wrexham snapback hat remains the best combination of South Philly and North Wales, and at least until a Wawa opens at the Eagles Meadow Shopping Centre. Can you tell us the story behind the gold third kit? How that came to be? How involved are you in that aspect of the club?
Ryan and I are very involved in that. I'm sure it's no surprise because we can't really get our fingers, nor should we, in player selection or formation or anything like that. And even just the overall logistics of running the club, we trust other people to do that. However, when it comes to the kits, we get very, very involved. And luckily, again, we have an incredible team who brings us options. Sean Harvey usually spearheads that with Humphrey, and they come to us with a few different ideas or designs, and then we go through and select them. The one thing that Ryan and I insisted upon, and this was after having seen the Beckham documentary, we both watched that the weekend it came out, and we wanted to get a long sleeve version of every shirt, and we wanted it to be a little bit loose and billowy in that look from the 90s that Beckham and all the players, all the clubs seem to wear those throughout that decade. We wanted to have something like that. So I think very soon all three kits are going to be available in the long sleeves.
God, Ollie Palmer's going to get that billowy shirt tailored. But hear me out. Next season, third shirt, there is that unique shade of red that the turf owner Wayne Jones goes when he's topless in California.
Wow. I actually felt like we were doing a lot of that when we went to Las Vegas with the club. Caitlin and I travel with the club, and we went to the pool, and these are very responsible young men. However, and they treated everybody with the utmost respect. And yes, they were drinking, but it wasn't crazy. But the most dangerous behavior was a group of people from Western Europe who do not have the skin to go out into the desert of Las Vegas and sit by a pool for 6 hours. We're not wearing sunscreen. So Caitlin and I felt like mom and dad just spraying these guys down or like forcing them to wear sunscreen. Obviously, in North Wales, you're not getting a ton of the same kind of sun that you see in Las Vegas. So, of course, Wayne comes over here, and no matter how much we warned him, he just did not put on sunblock. And he went to the beach, and he thought, well, I think I'll be fine. And he just roasted himself like a lobster.
I couldn't tell if on that photograph of you and him, I couldn't tell, Rob, whether down his side there's like a little white mark where he's got something. I couldn't tell whether it was a thong mark or he had a fanny pack on.
I have no idea.
I don't think I want to know.
I noticed it too, and I decided not to ask the question because I think it's more fun for my imagination to run free on that one.
I like both options. To be kind, I like to think of Wayne was sunbathing just in a thong with a fanny pack. Wayne, get back to us on that one, and God bless. I can't wait for Wrexham's shirt sponsor next season to be like Banana Boat Sunscreen. It's a massive opportunity for all you sunscreen brands watching. Always be selling. Going into this season, into League One, you've mentioned him, Phil Parkinson. He said, quote, "You've got to aim to be at the top, because if you aim for the middle, you can end up in the bottom," which, funnily enough, is also my approach to public bathrooms. But Humphrey Carr your incredible executive director. What a remarkable human being he is. He spent the weeks running into the season, and I spoke to him about this. He told me, he told everyone who'd listen. He told Fearless in Devotion at a live show. He said Wrexham's first objective this season was to just establish itself as a League One club. Talked a lot, this phrase, season of consolidation, where some of the focus would go towards developing the club's infrastructure, the academy, building out the stadium, getting it ready for that next push. Because despite promotions and its arrival in League One, this club is a little bit like Tom Hanks in Big still, where it seems to have almost grown up overnight. Do you feel any of that?
We talk about it all the time, the marathon versus the sprint. Our main goal, even though we talk about promotion all the time, but our main goal is to build a sustainable club. We want to build a sustainable club that will exist for generations. And so to do that, you always run the risk of scaling too fast. That said, I just don't think I have it in my blood. I don't think I have it in my genetics to slow down and to just simply invest in a middling club. I want to go out and win every single match. And luckily, the players feel the same way. So it's really funny to listen to all the prognosticators and Vegas, all the odds makers and all the sports talk people who really had us about mid-table. And everybody I talked to, even supporters, would say that they would be very, very, very happy with squeaking into the playoffs. That would be considered a win. And I think it's always good to under-promise and over-deliver. That said, I just can't help it when I really engage in either a mental model of what the club is going to be this year, or even just a conversation with a supporter. I don't know how else to go out but to try and win. And fortunately enough, that the players do not listen to any of the prognosticators or the supporters or their family members. They go out and win, and they believe that they can win. They believe they can win the league.
When you talk about the prognosticators, you mean Humphrey Carr. I mean, there is the emotional and the rational, because we shot in and around the turf ahead of the first day. And I've got to say, Humphrey did a bloody good job, because before kickoff, I was like, what are you expecting this season? And Rob, everyone was like, consolidation. I'll take a season of consolidation. I mean, he did a job mentally sowing that notion in. And then just 9 minutes into that first game against Wycombe, Max Cleworth slapped one into the net, put Wrexham on pace to score a modest 460 goals a season. And for all the fans around me, I've got to say, just looking around the Stoke end, the Tech end, all thoughts of consolidation just vanished like that. I mean, it was hilarious, just like F consolidation. We're going to win the bloody league. What were your own expectations on day one, honestly? And as you said earlier, it has been a strong start to the season, unbeaten in Wrexham's first 4 games, including holding Bolton, the team Opta predicted would win the league, to a 0-0 draw.
I've been told often, mostly by Humphrey, that I engage in irrational thinking as opposed to rational thinking. I like to believe it's magical thinking, because that has a nicer ring to it. But ultimately, it's just optimism. It's just optimism. I never understand going out and assuming the worst, or going out and assuming mediocrity. If we're going to compete in this league, let's compete in the league. And so we had a meeting sometime in June, which you will see in the documentary, where we are posed with a question. Our new CEO, Michael Williamson, and Sean and our entire executive team got together, and we were left with 2 options, essentially. One, which is invest in infrastructure and go for the marathon, or 2, go for it all and try to win the league and invest in infrastructure. And we chose B very quickly. Then they told us how much it would cost, and then we slowed down our conversation a little bit, but we came to the same place, which is, let's go all in and try to win this league.
God, by the way, if this is the only thing, young listeners, you take from this podcast, it would be that delusion. Be deluded. Don't dream. Be deluded. And then call it magical thinking. That is, I think, Rob's gift to the world, and I'm going to live to my dying day by that creed. You were actually there for the season opener with your family. You spoke to the team in the dressing room, the locker room, before they took the field. Rob, what did you tell them Not just about that day, but about all there is to come. Did you go Kenneth Branagh on them?
No. We leave that to Phil. We do not spend any time in the locker room before the games. We won't go in at halftime. We only go after the game, and we go into the locker room, win or lose, to either celebrate or console, or to be at least just to let the players know that we're supporting them and they're not alone and that we're all in this together. In terms of speaking to the players, we wait till after the match, and then even when we go in there, we just listen to them because they're at least recently they've been so excited at the end of the games. In terms of speaking to family, friends, supporters, yeah, we always try to temper success or failure with optimistic rationale, which is that we are really excited about where we are, really excited about where we can get to. And we're going to get to that place, win or lose, in the immediate. We're going to find wins, and even if there's a little bit of peaks and valleys, and there always are, we believe that we're trending up, and we'll continue on that trajectory for the next decade at least.
I mean, football, sports, it's one of the reasons I adore it, because it is a refraction of life. And as you say, it is a peaks and valley experience. And several years ago, I think it was Ryan Reynolds who interviewed you for Men's Health magazine. You said something that I've thought about a lot since then, Rob. You told him that when you're filming one of your TV shows, you said between the words action and cut, you, quote, don't feel any physical pain or any emotional pain, because it's one of the few places where you feel present and settled in the here and now. And when I think about that, it's how I feel watching Everton Football Club. Rob, do you experience that at Wrexham games? Can you stay in the moment there when you're at the Stoke Kairas or when you're watching their games at home in a way you can't in other places in your life?
I certainly stay present. However, it's not as enjoyable as an experience because, as you know, and any football fan knows, unlike any sport I can think of, possibly boxing or MMA, where things can change in the blink of an eye, the experience of watching a football game is racked with anxiety and nerves and excitement. And it's all building up inside of you because the release, with American football, basketball, hockey, there's a little bit more of a release throughout the game. In American football, even within a first down, couple of first downs, you can release, you can get excited, you could turn to the person next to you and clap and hug and give high fives, and you score a touchdown and there's a release, and then it goes to commercial and you turn to the people next to you and you have a conversation. Anybody who watches football knows that does not exist. Maybe after a goal, but even after a goal, immediately you're racked with the potential for the other team to score, and that can happen within seconds. So you feel excitement through the entire experience, but you never feel a sense of peace until after the game is over.
Does the pressure ratchet up the higher up the league you go?
I don't think so. I actually I had an interesting phenomenon occur last year when I came out to the Stockport game at the end of the season because it was meaningless. And that was the excitement around it, which was, this game doesn't really matter. And actually it happens also in the summer tour games as well. You tell yourself the game doesn't matter because it doesn't really. And yet you can't help it. You put so much value into the success or failure of each individual game that they all feel like they're a cup final. To me, every game feels like a cup final.
Two of the things that you and Ryan have done so well, something you actually pledged to do in your original mission statement, are to, quote, reinforce the values, traditions and legacy of this community and to reward the faith of the supporters. Two goals which can take many forms, including supporting local causes, all the way to donating. I was in Wrexham and I spent time with Steve Tappy, the beloved owner of the quite incredible Wrexham Trainer Revival. And after his store was burglarised, you guys stepping in to help or just encouraging the relationships between the club, the players, the fans. And as Wrexham continues to grow as a club, as a town, as a global phenomenon, and to keep climbing that football pyramid, have you thought about the challenge of maintaining those connections? Premier League players don't walk through the parking lot like that vibe you currently have, just taking selfies with supporters with all the patience in the world.
No, I'm not concerned about that because it's not something that we're putting on for show or as a means to an end. It's something that we truly enjoy. It's one of the joys of the experience, as opposed to it feeling or seeming like it's a responsibility that we must do. We look at it as an opportunity to do something we want to do. I talked to Elliot Lee and his dad at our promotion party last year, Rob, and we were having a conversation over a couple of beers at the Cent in the race course. And Elliot was saying that he had only met one other owner or chairman of any club he'd ever worked for. And Rob said he didn't meet any over the course of his career, or very few. And I asked them why that was, and they said, well, the owners don't seem to care that much, or they don't really come to the games, or they don't really pay attention. No, obviously that's not all owners, but many of them do. And I don't understand that. I don't know, why are you doing it? Why would you want to invest into a club and into an experience that you don't really care about that much? I look at this not as an economic responsibility, but as an opportunity to do something that is just pure enjoyment and joy.
Well, one of the most unbelievable parts of this story remains the fact that you and Ryan Reynolds had never met each other in person before you brought this football club together. How has your relationship evolved as you've celebrated these joys, the successes on the field, the club getting promoted, and just the energy in that town, the fortunes, the futures of the entire community changing as Wrexham AFC rise?
One of the really fun aspects of the documentary is that we have a record of my relationship with Ryan. Certainly, our entire experience has been documented. So I can go back and watch season 1 or even footage from that season and see as our relationship continues to evolve. We started the conversation talking about Phil and the players, and then Humphrey. And if you notice, there's a very common through line through our entire experience. I think we believe that one of our responsibilities is to create and foster a culture that we believe starts from the top down. And we hold that sacrosanct because we can't affect any real change in the locker room or on the pitch. Maybe we can do so with kits and merchandise and things like that. But ultimately, that's inconsequential. What winds up being consequential is the culture that we can help to foster. And that is just kind of the people that we are. What do we value? The things that we think are important. And then we hire people based on that, who they are, and of course, what they can accomplish. But we found in our experience in an industry that is sort of famous for having shifty characters, and the assumption is, well, you have to have a certain kind of dark personality to be successful in the arts or business or whatever it might be. And that's not been our experience. We've been so fortunate to partner with people who believe you can be a good, kind person, who can admit when they're wrong and listen and try to grow and understand, and also be a killer in business and be a killer on the pitch. We believe all of those things can be true at the same time.
You're saying that even though he cut your scenes out of Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yeah, I've got something planned for him. Don't worry about
that. Rob, last question for you. November will mark 4 years. It's incredible actually saying that. I said in the introduction, time has gone so fast. Has it gone fast for you, by the way, or slowly?
It's flown by. It's flown by.
It's a madness.
I can't imagine. I mean, tomorrow, I'm so excited. I still get so excited for the games because we have our little ritual. My son, both my sons, but my eldest son specifically, we have a very specific ritual every Saturday morning. And it feels like it was just yesterday when we were waking up and watching those initial games. And I went back and saw some of the footage because someone put it up online of us watching the game, and he is a different person. He is a baby, essentially. You know, it was in the life of he's now 14, and when we started, he was 9.5, turning 10. So as anybody knows who has kids, a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old look vastly different. So I've been sort of marking time through him. And this, actually, this was a gift that Caitlin got me. Every game I take a little piece of the turf, the pitch with me, and I just put it in my pocket. So This marks all of the special games. So most recently, League One promotion, Wrexham 6, Forest Green 0, April 13th, 2024. And I actually wasn't there for that game because we weren't sure that was going to be the clincher. So I had Humphrey grab me a bunch of grass and he put it in a plastic bag for me. Every other game I've been to, and it goes all the way back to our first home win, Wrexham 5, Maidstone 0, August 20th, 2022. That's this one here.
That is incredible. I'd say the Rupert Brooke poem, to paraphrase, there is some corner of a foreign field that is forever North Wales. That is beautiful. A little bit of North Wales in California. And I mean, by the way, your son, when he makes his debut for Everton as their striker, aged 18, when they're in League Two, he's going to have a whole document of his footballing journey, and it's going to be magnificent, and I cannot wait for that moment. But in that 4 years, of dreams, that 4 years of, I mean, you called it peaks and valleys, far more peaks so far than the latter. What have you learned about yourself, Rob, in those past 4 years? How's this journey and being part of it changed you?
Well, it's interesting that you said it's mostly peaks because I can see how that may seem to be the case from the outside, but that's only assuming that the peaks are wins on the pitch. And yes, that is invariably true that winning on the pitch is of paramount importance, but some of those valleys are more personal. One thing that I was not prepared for was how difficult it is to say goodbye to players, because one of the very few downsides of becoming so personally close with the players is that you have to say goodbye to everybody at some point. You know, ultimately that's a metaphor for life in general, which is that people come and people go. But when you put so much value on the relationships that you have with people, to say goodbye is very difficult. So we've had so many valleys along the way, insofar as we started the conversation talking about Ben Tozer and Luke Young, who's my favorite player. Luke Young, and I was very public in stating that. And that's not a slight to the other players. I just loved Luke. He was our longest tenured player. He was with us from the very beginning. So to say goodbye to him was devastating. And I got very close with Chloe, his wife, and his children, and I still speak with him. I check in with both of them. I check in with a lot of the players that have left, because it's legitimately emotionally painful to say goodbye to them. So to answer your question, I think I've learned, for as fun as the experience of being the chairman of this club is, it can also be really, really hard to say goodbye.
Rob McElhenney, there is so much life truth in what we have discussed. I will say my dad passed away recently, and to pull that together, of all the football world, I heard most from Wrexham players in that moment. And it is a remarkable testament to the truth of the club as a caring, nourishing, deeply personal place. I'm here in Chicago. I cannot wait to get back to North Wales and sample the journey ahead. To you, to your family, to your club, to everything that you are doing in North Wales, I raise my stoke to you. Rob, thank you, mate.
Thanks for having me back, Raj. Hope I'll see you soon.
Courage.